Hey, what's up everybody? It's Kellen here from Start Your Systems and welcome back to Monster Energy Supercross 5, the official video game where today we're going to be playing a custom replica version of the 2022 Seattle Supercross in the game, talking about the track build that I did here for the PC, and also talking a little bit about the 2022 Seattle Supercross race that happened in real life over the weekend. Yeah, pretty, I feel like, kind of mellow track for the most part. Like, there wasn't anything wildly crazy about the racetrack this weekend. They may have figured that that was, going to be the case with rain coming up, so they didn't over-design the track or anything crazy like that. But also, this was a more or less a exact replica of the 2020, the 2020 Seattle Supercross race that never ended up happening because of the COVID outbreak back then. And then we ended up doing these 7 rounds in Salt Lake City as opposed to going out and doing the racing in Seattle. So this is the first time we'd gone back to Seattle since 2019. And walked the track on Friday, walked the track on Saturday. The dirt was very, I felt like kind of moist and loamy. And then when the practices and everything got underway, I was kind of surprised how hard-packed everything stayed. Like, it really didn't seem to change much. It rained a little bit during the day, but not a whole lot. And by the end, by race night, I felt like the dirt was about as perfect as it had been for really just the majority of the week leading up to it and everything like that. According to our Jason Wygant, the track was built while it was raining and the dirt was wet, so maybe that's what a little bit of the loaminess feel was on Friday with the dirt, and it definitely seemed like it got pretty rutted up pretty quickly when the guys are doing press day out there, but it just stayed very hard-packed throughout the day. Not so much so that it's hard-packed, dry California dirt or anything like that, but it definitely did not get as rutted as I kind of expected to see out of Seattle. So in turn, we ended up with a pretty good racetrack, pretty solid set of rhythm sections that I felt like were technical and challenging, and definitely gave guys some different options to choose from. So that's why I wanted to come back, build it as close as I could to spec here in Monster Energy Supercross 5 and talk about a couple of the rhythm lines, which, of course, I did try my very best to include the big quad over the table out of the corner right here, and they followed it up with a triple-triple. I like how that feels when you can really connect it and flow it in this game. The first rhythm section, I tried to kind of almost nerf the triple on line, but it ended up making it not even close to as nerfed as I thought it was, and it's actually pretty easy to quad over the first table, and then you would go either quad triple or triple quad. So there's even a bigger line that you can hit in that first rhythm section on this track that I created than they were doing in real life, which, again, I didn't really want to have happen. I really try as hard as I can to make the rhythm sections as close to spec as possible and something that would be similar to what they would have done in the race, but it's a video game at the end of the day, so there's always going to be some unrealistic things about it. But as I mentioned, so this first rhythm section, you can carry some momentum through here. You can quad over the table. I'm going to check up and triple, and then you can quad into this corner as well, but ended up jumping off the side of the track a little bit, so apologies there. And then, like I said, with this rhythm section right here, it's really not too hard because I built a bigger single out of that corner to make the quad in possible, but it's also not very hard to triple up onto the table either, which is pretty much what most of the guys are doing. So overall, I feel like a pretty good build. I feel like I got it as close as I could to a realistic level with, extending the scaling in some parts. Obviously, we can't do that raised corner before the Supercross triple right here. So that's a little bit of a bummer, but I feel like the flow that I made out of that corner still works pretty well. And then coming down the straightaway right here, it's also a little bit tricky because it looks like you could just go right here, but obviously the way that you have to lay down some of the straightaways into corners and stuff is a little bit funky, and there is no off-camber corner included in the track design elements that we have. So a couple things that I definitely had to change up to make the track work, which is not always the ideal thing. I wish I could build it a lot closer to spec and have some of these off-camber corners or jumps spread out or closer together in certain parts to make it more realistic to what the track layout actually was. But even so, that section I feel like flows perfect, and the rest of the track is pretty standardized, I feel like. So good little track. Like I said, if you want to try it on the PC, it's called Seattle 2022, Seattle 2022, with a space between Seattle and the number. So you can try it out there. You can search by my name, just Kellen, K-E-L-L-E-N, on the PC, and try out these tracks as well. I will probably get around to building some of these on the consoles, but it's just really tough with my time schedule to always sit down and build multiple tracks at a time, because it usually, this one took me about 35 minutes maybe or so to build, and sitting down and building 3 of them would take almost 2 full hours to get all of them down. So don't always have quite the time to put all that stuff together, but eventually I'll try to get around to building some, at least on the console, so you console players aren't missing out on some of my track concepts and designs. Because even though it's a replica, everybody builds replicas a little bit differently. I have my own style and flair of which I try to build these tracks, and other people have a different style where they either spread it out or they make it more tighter or whatever. I feel like I've found a good little middle ground of what I like here, and hopefully people enjoy it as well. So yeah, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. All right, let's talk about this race just a little bit. Not too much to get into because there's really not a whole lot to talk about. 450 main event. Eli Tomac got out front, and Barcia caught him a little bit at the beginning, but he pretty much just gapped the field. That was one of the better Eli Tomac rides we've seen in a while because he was still doing some of the biggest lines on the track, even late into the main event when he had a comfortable lead, so he didn't even need to do them, but he was still just out there, cranking the quad over the table and, flowing this rhythm section seemingly no problem as well. So, yeah, pretty gnarly ride there by Tomac. He has a huge championship lead. I mean, he's going to wrap it up early at this point, but at this it kind of just comes down to when. Like, is he going to wrap it up 2 rounds early? Will he have to wait until the penultimate round to wrap it up, or will things get a little bit wilder and he won't even wrap it up until the last race of the year? I still think he'll probably wrap it up 2 rounds early, which would be kind of cool. For his sake, I think that one is Denver, I believe. So for him to wrap it up in his home state would obviously be awesome. And he's just in cruise control at this point. I mean, everybody else is fighting for second, and Tomac has got a huge championship lead, but it doesn't seem to faze him at all. Big championship lead, still winning races pretty much like it's nobody's business. Jason Anderson gets second, first solid ride for him in a couple weeks. Even going back to Arlington, he got into it with Malcolm. That was 4 rounds ago. 3 rounds ago, got into it with Malcolm at Daytona. Ends up finishing, I believe, 6th. And then the big crash at Detroit, ends up 21st. And then again getting together with Justin Barcia at Indianapolis. And that also, I think he ended up 6th or 7th in that one as well. So it's just been a rough sequence of weeks. He went from only 6 points down going into Daytona to now 54 points down. And that's, life comes at you quick, I guess. Been a rough stretch for him. And he just seemed to be excited to even get back up onto the podium because of this rough stretch that he's had. It's just nice to get a race under his belt that actually did work, and kind of everything came together. So good ride for him. Marvin Musquin gets 3rd in the main event, and very much like Anderson, just a solid ride. He got 3rd at Indianapolis as well, just doing the same thing, like kind of just clicking off his laps. He didn't look good in the whoops early on, but he figured it out, and eventually just kind of maintained that 3rd place. Like for a little bit he was catching Jason, but then fell off, and then for a little bit he had Malcolm catching him from behind, but then Malcolm went down, so he lost some time, and then Marvin was just able to kind of stretch it out, and in the end kind of easily hold on to 3rd place. So back-to-back podiums. It's a pretty cool feeling, obviously, with Marv. At this point, he's maybe on the very last few races of his career. I have a feeling he's coming back for 2022 or 2023, excuse me, and that might be his last season, but his contract is up in 5 races, and the future is still an unknown with him. So cool of him to get up on the box and still being able to ride at this elite level and experience these maybe final couple podiums of his career, if that's what it ends up being, but we'll see. Like I said, behind him, Malcolm Stewart got 4th. Justin Barcia crashed heavily, but still was able to pick it up and finish in 5th. He had Cooper Webb right behind him for a lot of the end of the race, but Webb was not able to make a pass. Talked to Webb a little bit on Friday about the injury and him dealing with it a little bit, and he says it's really the impacts that he's having a problem with. It's when he has to blitz the whoops or has to land a jump hard or jump a single out to flat or whatever, is that the bone bruise isn't so bad on the broken bone in his hand isn't so bad. He's got a little fracture in the metacarpal, but the bone bruise on his shoulder is worse. It's when he's taking those hits and the shoulder has to deal with taking those hits that it's a little bit tough for him to deal with. So 6th on the night after a horrendous start of the main event was kind of as expected, because basically the other 5 guys that would have ran up front all ran up front. So couldn't quite get Barcia at the end, but still trying to build, it looks like, for old Cooper Webb. 250 class ended up being a lot kind of more chaotic than the 450 class when you think back to it in hindsight. You got Christian Craig, Michael Moseman starting out front. Craig didn't really have the pace early on in the main event, and Moseman started reeling him back in, which was a little bit unique because Moseman just didn't look comfortable in his heat race whatsoever. So it seemed like he had kind of figured something out by the main event. In the main event, he had tremendous speed early on in the race. Got up to Craig, and people are going to be like, probably on 2 sides of the coin again. Christian Craig was not happy at all about the contact that Mosiman put on him, but, you know, did leave the door open, did know Mosey was there, so to a degree, you kind of have to be a little bit like, I don't know, expecting of something like that's going to happen. Either way, Mosiman, you know, gives him a little bump and run nudge at the top of the berm here before the finish line jump. Craig goes down, picks it up in 6th, and then slowly clawed his way back into contention, but Mosiman actually bent his rear brake rotor in that contact, so, you know, kind of, I hate to use the word karma because he didn't even use the word karma, but, you know, ride a little bit of aggressive and sometimes it comes back to bite you. In that situation, Mosiman had the pace to win the race, but, you know, contact with Craig, bent rotor, and suddenly he's going backwards a little bit. Didn't have a rear brake the rest of the main event. Within a few laps after the contact, was getting caught by Hunter Lawrence for the race lead. Lawrence was able to scoot by and put a little bit of a gap between himself and Mosiman. So when Craig eventually caught back up and got back around Mosiman for second place, Lawrence did have a little bit of time established between that group and himself out front. So he kind of, I don't want to say managed the race from there, but it did a little bit to a degree because there wasn't any real pressure being pushed from behind until really late in the race when he made a couple mistakes in the whoops, and then Christian got a little bit close, but even Craig was kind of like, it seemed like he was, you know, thinking championship, thinking I don't need to go beat Hunter Lawrence for this title. Like I'm in a perfect position here in second place still, going to leave with a good points lead, so not much to it to go out there and literally break your back to try to make a pass for the race victory. So maybe a little bit of measured approach there by Craig at the end, but yeah, after the race he wasn't happy. He wasn't happy with the Mosiman pass. Felt like it's, you know, been 3 times in the last 3 weekends, as he put it, that he's been hit and put on the ground, and getting a little sick and tired of it. But as Mosiman put it, like, he does have the target on his back. You know, he's got the red plate. There's still guys that are trying to, you know, make something weird happen in this championship to maybe close it up right here at the end and get the points lead back from Craig before this whole thing is behind us. But yeah, I mean, aggressive racing, nobody really loves to see guys go down, but aggressive racing is part of the sport, and sometimes stuff like that just happens. But like I said, still has a big championship lead. Got that 26-point advantage on Lawrence, who did win the race, and Lawrence was just very excited about his tee time on Monday, which I'm not sure if he was coming back to California, but it's raining out here in California, so maybe his tee time got rained out anyway. Either way, does win the race, his 3rd career win, his 2nd win of the season, but this one felt a little bit sweeter for Lawrence because it was not a Triple Crown, so he actually, you know, straight up won a 15-minute main event, dealt with the pressure well, and managed it well. So, you know, coming in from this break, there was some rumors about would he take a dive to protect points and, you know, maybe still keep his eligibility for another year, but turns out, nope, that's not the case, and turns out that he still is feeling pretty froggy and fresh after going down pretty hard in the whoops in Anaheim. Right back at it and wins the race here in Seattle. So now we got a weekend off, first and only weekend off of the 2022 Supercross season. So all these guys will probably go into a little bit of outdoor testing mode, getting ready for Lucas Oil Pro Motocross coming up in a couple months' time now here. And then back in action with 250 East in St. Louis. And then the 250 East-West Showdown after that, which I'm sure a lot of people are looking forward to. Of course, a lot of people are talking about Jet Lawrence versus Christian Craig, but, you know, you can't forget about Hunter Lawrence in there. Cameron McAdoo has looked fantastic on the East as well. Michael Mosiman could have won this race tonight, or, you know, 2 nights ago in Seattle, I should say, and he'll fare well in the showdown. So this should be a fun battle. It'll be kind of cool to see where these guys stack up and see who comes out on top in Atlanta in a couple weeks' time. But that is your lot from Seattle. Pretty interesting little night of racing. Kind of boring 450 main event. Good 250 main event, but the championship leaders kind of, you know, keep the ball rolling more or less. They still have big championship leads in both the 450 and 250 West divisions. And at this point, we're just trying to keep an eye on how they manage and whether or not they're still going for race wins, or are they trying to take this title home and not think too much about getting involved in any of the drama. So yeah, Seattle done. Little break coming up, and we'll be back in action in a couple weeks' time here in St. Louis. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. As always, please be sure to get involved in the comment section below if you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, or anything else about this track, this game, or anything along those lines. But I appreciate you guys stopping by and watching another video here on Start Your Systems. I'll see you guys in the next one. So long for now.